My name is Gila Moray. I'm a partner over here at Tefen Management Consulting, and I'm joined by Brendan Rosen, one of our consultants, and two folks from Allina Hospital and Clinics, Robert Mealy and Brian Rice, who will introduce themselves shortly. Today we will talk about the effectiveness of a project management office and the way to actually leverage a project management office in your health system in a hospital setting, which is something that is not that common unless you look at the IT world. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump on to our next slide. And if I had to ask how many of you are actually managing operational initiatives such as reducing length of stay, I know you can't answer right now because we're in a chat mode, but I bet you that the answer would be anywhere between 80 and 100% of the people would say that they have any sort of initiative regarding that. If I ask how many of you are looking at initiatives involving patient satisfaction improvement, I can guarantee that the answer would be pretty much about the same. And the same would go for any other operational or strategic initiative. Now, if I've asked how many different people are managing and running those tasks, either as executive sponsors or project managers, most hospitals, and if it's a health system and even more so, would say that over 10 people, and probably sometimes even over 20, would be associated with managing and governing those initiatives. Now, when you start looking across the board and starting to understand the complexities of integrating those initiatives, the need to understand what resources are associated with them, what potential benefits might be overlapping that both projects are accounting for, you start to understand the need to have a better coordination and management of initiatives across the board, especially when you look at the different people that are involved with that. So the next slide actually shows that we have quite a few people in every hospital really associated with those initiatives. The problem is that often they are the experts in the process that they own, in the activities that they do day in and day out. But are they necessarily equipped with the project management tools in order to be able to manage those initiatives that they're responsible for that are really projects in the best way? What we have found is that the answer to that is not always yes, and this is where a project management office approach, a PMO approach, could be extremely helpful and productive in a hospital setting. So that's our segue into today's discussion. What I'd like to do is to hand the stage over to Brian Rice from Allina Hospitals and Clinics to introduce himself and Rob Mealy and to take us from there.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hopefully this is coming through. Gil, can you just give a confirmation that you can hear us?
Yeah, yes, we can. We're good.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Rice. I'm a director with the Strategy Business Development Department of Allina. And I wanted to spend just a few minutes giving you some backgrounds on who Allina is, what we have been doing with Tefen over the past several months. It's really context setting, and then I'll give some more comments with my colleague Robert later on in the slide deck presentation. But Midwest integrated healthcare delivery system, we have 11 hospitals, approximately 80 clinics, 25,000 employees. We're one of the largest healthcare providers in the state of Minnesota employers. We have been quite successful in care delivery and performance over the past few years, but the environment that you all are aware of healthcare is changing, it's dynamic, and as we're advancing a new strategic focus called Allina 2.0, we really, from a leadership direction, need to advance an enhancement to our care model and be prepared for total cost of care management, how healthcare reform is going to impact us as a provider delivery organization. So in preparing for that, in the beginning of 2009, we advanced a strategic plan called Allina 2.0, with the charge of seeking a 10% reduction in our operating costs over a 3-year period. So we are positioned to continue to thrive in the dynamic healthcare environment. So we did a lot of internal work to identify the opportunities for that $250 million target. The challenge we faced, quite honestly, was how can we have speed and certainty in achieving those results? What skill sets do we need beyond our internal resources to help us achieve that? And through that dialogue, we determined that we wanted to enlist help from Tefen, both for some management consulting and key focus areas, as well as for project management assistance. The leadership team of Allina recognized the value and importance of having a disciplined approach and consistency and focus to really help us achieve fairly large cost savings over a 3-year period. And it was probably a different skill set and infrastructure that we would need to support us going forward. So that's really the jumping off point then when we engaged Tefen in the summer of '09 for them coming in and helping establish that infrastructure and get grounded in what we have in front of us and how can we be successful and meet those targets over a 3-year window. With that, I'll stop and Gil, I'll turn it back to you.
Actually, it's going to be Brandon talking a little bit more about the importance of a healthcare PMO. And although the challenges described by Brian in the previous slides are distinct to Allina, many hospitals and systems are taking on a broad range of initiatives to improve their model of care and achieve hard dollar savings. If you're faced with this scenario, you must be asking the question, how do you manage high-priority initiatives at a hospital-wide or system-wide level? The answer, simply put, is a PMO. The purpose of a healthcare PMO is to create structure and integration on high-priority items through a centralized project office. The PMO most effectively does this through the coordination of projects and resources, servicing and training on effective project management tools, monitoring and reporting progress to targets, and giving visibility throughout the organization, and finally to communicate a central message to a wide array of stakeholders. The PMO, in essence, gives transparency throughout the organization while putting all the pieces together. In some cases, you may have heard the term PPM, or Project Portfolio Management. Often, a PPM and a PMO are two separate entities. A PPM's goal is not just to ensure rigor around project delivery practices, but also to enable an organization to manage the continuous flow of projects from idea and concept through completion, focus on investment decisions, such as asking the question, are we doing the right things? And to ensure benefit realization, asking the question, are we getting the benefits? However, in the case of Allina's PMO, which supports both strategy and operations, those two functions are blended together. A strategic and operational PMO should take on the PPM role, as seen in this slide. This becomes the fundamental difference between an IT PMO and an operational strategic PPM. Where an IT PMO ensures rigor in project delivery, Allina's PMO, which was focused on strategic and operational initiatives, included managing leadership's appetite with the reality of supply and capacity before focusing attention on individual project development. In addition, an IT PMO is typically in control of one business unit and a defined number of resources. A hospital system-wide PMO manages a multitude of cross-functional entities. Because of the great degree of difference, the PMO approach, although standardized, must also be flexible and accommodating. Turning to the next slide, at this point you may be asking what is the solution or approach for taking on and managing these challenges, and specifically what did we accomplish for Allina? The basic approach for creating and running your healthcare PMO is shown in this diagram. These 5 stages or phases are essential for creating a successful PMO that can not only manage the current challenges, but carve out a niche and be a sustainable entity for your organization. The cornerstone for creating your PMO is to first understand what PMO makes the most sense for your organization, which one meshes best with the executives. This is the foundation to creating the integrative structure necessary to carry out both your operational and strategic goals. During this first stage, you will need to understand everything from an organization's history with project management experiences to their current culture, to market conditions, and finally to leadership expectations. Before I delve any further into the theoretics of creating a PMO, let me hand it over to Robert Melee, the PMO director at Allina, to discuss a little bit more about the similarities and distinctions with creating a healthcare PMO at Allina.